Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 30 of A Letter to the King. For those of you new to the series, A Letter to the King is my attempt to keep you appraised of the various PvP shenanigans going on Euro PvP 1. Before we get into it, let's have a look at where we were last week. And really everything's sort of going a bit soft at the moment because we all know the patch is coming, praying the patch is coming. So a lot of the stuff that's going on really is people just looking to pick a fight. The Spanish have started moving back in around Tantum, Cozumel, and started grabbing up ports with probably Jupar next on their list. The French are into Little Cayman, whereas the Brits have taken up, I can't remember, maybe Manzanilla. The Dutch have re-established much of their territory along the north coast of South America here. The Swedes have made a little reappearance on Haiti, and shock horror, the French are in Jamaica. Is there no depth to the indignity? And our friends the pirates are back. So let's see what happened this week. The alliances very much stayed as they were because we're on this sort of short cycle. Every now and again one of your allies falls out the box for 2 days. So the Dutch were out with the Brits for a little time, and I think the French were out with the Spanish for a little time, but everything is back to normal there. It's going to be interesting to see come the patch, which is in theory due sometime this week. Let's hope that happens because everybody's waiting for it really. Numbers are pretty much static, but there's very little focus, I suppose, going on at the moment. We'll have to think about our alliances after the patch. As I spoke about last week, Spain start off with a tremendous amount of territory, so anyone allied with Spain won't be able to move into that territory. So Spain's in an interesting situation, but so are the Dutch, the Danes and the Swedes, who start off with tiny amounts of territory. The Brits find themselves really in 3 different zones, and they're going to have to pick a focal point. So hopefully those of you who operate in clans, you've pegged out where you're going to be, and anyone who's got ports not in a free town and not in their capital territories, you might want to go on the forums and check, because your stuff, if it's in just a regular old port, so if you were Brit and you had stuff up around here or across these islands here, they're going to flip to be Spanish, and that stuff will be locked in there just like it is normally when you've got a captured port. The only way to get it out is to run in there with a trader with a smuggler flag on, and then strip everything off that ship and bring it out in a fleet and teleport home. Which can be rather dangerous in enemy waters. We don't know where people are going to be setting up, so that's going to be very interesting. So this week, what happened? Well, the Spanish did a bit of empty port capping, snaffing up a bunch of ports, which were hard fought back in the day, but no one's bothering to defend them right now. The French managed to grab the British port over here again. Hardly a pivotal port to try and hold on to. Interestingly enough, the French gave up on Little Cayman, and this was a bit of a funny episode because the Brits kept attacking Little Cayman, and barely a Frenchman was seen, but there were pirate screeners and Spanish, and in fact there was a port battle. I made it in towards the end of it actually, and the Spanish had already done a sterling job at holding the Brits off, but the Spanish had like 20 ships, 25 ships in here. So that the Spanish actually took that off the French today, and that is now in Spanish hands, which is much easier to defend. The French, really, I've barely seen them over on this side of the map. So the Spanish grabbed that up today. The little Swedes, I don't mean to demean the Swedes, the mighty Swedes, managed to push and grab a whole bunch of ports up here. Again, not many of them really been contested. Um, and this is what's happening now. If people are attacking a port, if there's folks on and they want a scrap, they'll go and defend it. Otherwise, they're off ganking around somewhere else. And the Dutch grabbed up a couple more ports around here, but again, they're very, very quiet, our Dutch friends. The main action, I suppose, has been centered around Jamaica. And this is a lot of open water battles going on. So we've had every man and his dog in the waters around Jamaica. Sometimes 3 and 4 nations paying a visit. It's lovely to sail out of KPR and immediately see 3 or 4 different nations in little groups outside. And for the most part, there's been some pretty good PvP going on there. I have to say the pirates probably had the best of it. They had the most organised fleets coming down. A couple of different clans were coming down, getting themselves set up in decent sized fleets, 5 to 15, various combinations, and really giving the Brits a bit of a roughing up. Towards the end of the week, there was a couple of small Empiric victories for the Brits where they pushed the French out, and having caught the pirate fleet just off Carlisle, the brave British captains massively outnumbered the pirate fleet and camped them. And then a bunch of Brits, mostly pubbies, managed to snaffle the port back off the pirates. Now, by all accounts, the pirates weren't going to defend that port anyway, but they had little choice because they were trapped. And this is what happens in open water. I've said this on a number of occasions. You come in with 8 or 9 ships, you cause bloody mayhem for an hour and a half, 2 hours as you snot smaller fleets or even equal or slightly larger fleets that aren't as organised as a well-coordinated fleet, especially if it's single clan and everyone's on team speak. You can probably beat fleets 20% bigger than you if you're coordinated and know what you're doing. And you've come in nicely set up. But eventually you're going to get outgunned. And then, of course, everyone just sits in the battle screen until an alt tells them it's all clear. And run away. Or carry on causing mayhem for a while. But there's been some good open world PvP going around here. Lots of players. I quite like the guys, I must admit. I gave this a go where was I? A while ago, sailing out of here. Just in a fast little ship, just trying to snag the odd trader. And or even a ship, maybe the ship might be a rate higher than you, but you've got superior turn rate, so you try and get on their backside. And it's a good challenge, by the way, if you're still waiting for something to do, you're a bit bored, get yourself set up in a Rattler or a Renome, get it kitted out for speed, run around and just try and pick one-on-ones with people. Ideally, you want a fight where you know you've got the manoeuvrability. Now, obviously, if they're a better captain than you might find yourself in a spot of bother, especially if they know how to anti your ship. So make sure you know the best wind of your ship and the best wind of the ships you're going up to. But it's a good little test, good little way of sort of muscling up and seeing if getting into the 1v1 PvP. But again, eventually you'll snot somebody and there'll be a whole pants load of ships on the outside. I know the French, quite often I'll sail out of Plymouth with a bunch of lovely Aussie chaps, and we'll gangbang a couple of unfortunates, even a couple of evenish fights. But eventually you pop out of battle screen and there's millions of them there and they absolutely kick your backside and you lose your durabilities, but such is life. So I think the pirates probably had the best of it until they were unceremoniously kicked out of PA, and as they claim, and it's probably true, they weren't going to defend it. In the end, they didn't have a choice, but they weren't going to defend it anyway, by all accounts. And then towards the end of the week, the Brits also snagged up Tiburon. I don't know if that was defended, to be honest. That was after I'd gone to bed when that fell. So this is where we are. As I said last week, we're waiting for the patch. Pray for the patch. Pray for the patch. There's going to be loads of new stuff. I'm going to have to reformat Letter to the King, work out how I do the regions and the hotspots, and whether or not it's going to be more about aggression. I've got a bit of a theory that it's going to be much harder to take a port The devs are saying there's going to be a limited number of port battles a day. Now, I mean, we've been on, at the height of the wars, there's 15, 20 flags being pulled. Half of those are successful. Most of the clans, though, now, if they get even numbers and a more or less even ship distribution, most of the clans know how to defend a port. Either by running the timer down and just playing saily tag, or knowing that they, when to commit, when to snag a few ships, when to back off again. And defending a port, to be honest, if you're in a really well organised fleet, defending a port 7 times out of 10 should come off. It's really hard for the aggressor to get the advantage and take a port, and it can take 4 or 5 attempts to break the opposition, and quite often that's because you either wear them down or you pull distraction flags and draw them away. Now, with the new port battle mechanics, where you can only aggress a certain number of ports a day, and at the point they tip over, everybody gets 2 days notice, I suspect it's going to get even harder for the attacker. First of all, they have to get their fleet to the port, and in most situations, if you defend near the port in a multi-durability ship, if it gets sunk, you respawn in the port you need to defend. Whereas, of course, if you're attacking and you get sunk, you respawn bloody miles away. Secondly, the actual port battles themselves aren't changing. So, as I say, it's like a 30% conversion rate to take a fully defended port. And now you get 48 hours notice, and now you know when the port battles are. You'll be able to pick your defences much more smartly, and you'll be able to coordinate with your allies, as we saw this week with the Spanish essentially defending a French port. I don't think there was a French ship in there. I could be wrong. There might have been 1 or 2. But most of the names I was seeing in there were the old regulars of the Spanish brigade. So I suspect capturing ports is going to become really, really difficult. It's going to be very interesting to see what the new meta is for how do you do it, how important is screening. Do you basically keep one of your slots empty? And if you know a port is going to be attacked on your time zone, go and set up a port in there, go and move a ship in of the right class, maybe even a second ship, and then you can use your second ship, a throwaway perhaps, to screen and try and stop the assaulting force from getting in. And we don't really know how it's going to work, because you don't plant a flag, so to speak. So the danger is one numpty goes in on their own and gets slaughtered, or there's 25 of you try and get there, but only 18 of you make it because of screeners. And how long does the aggressed port stay aggressed? That's going to be interesting. So does it lose its aggression? I understand aggression decays. So for example, if you've got a port at 80% grumpy monkeys and it's ready for then the next day, if you don't do anything, it's going to drop back to 70% grumpy monkeys or whatever the algorithm says. So if you get a port to 100% and then the port battle commences 48 hours from that time, as the attacking fleet, how long have you got to get in there? And when you do get in there, how long does it stay? Is it just a normal 90 minutes? I assume it is. But will it be exactly at 10 a.m. or whatever that port battle begins? And if you're not in, then the defenders just win. We don't know any of that. The patch notes are beautifully vague. I still do work with software. I used to write it. I manage it now. It's a bit boring. But the release notes are beautifully vague, so we don't really know. I will try and do a few instructional videos when I've worked things out myself. Of course, we don't know when the patch is. Now, I can use some Jeheil logic here. The last 3 big patches where we've all been excited have been on nights when I'm out getting... having a drink and having a cup of tea and a sandwich with my friends. So I'm going out on Thursday night, and it'll be a biggie. It'll be 2 cups of tea and 3 sandwiches, I suspect. So it's not going to surprise me if patch is on Thursday night. So even if I wake up early on Friday, I'll be feeling horrible because sometimes I find if you overdo it on the cucumber sandwiches, you can get a bit of a headache the next morning. Anyway, a bit of a short letter to the King this week, mostly because there's not really been that much action going on apart from the slapfestery around South Jamaica. Let's get this patch in. Tomorrow would be fantastic if it was in on Tuesday. That would be great. Anyway, that's it for me. No tally board. I'll work out a new format for Letter of the King once we've got our heads around the patch. And so I will see you on the ocean, and I will catch you.